Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of post-hardcore, checking out some music from the post-hardcore genre. Today we're going to be looking at Fugazi, which we've had on the channel previously, and I think I've enjoyed what they did. The name rings a bell. We're going to be looking at a track from the In On the Kill Taker album from 1993. The track we're looking at is called Smallpox Champion, which is it's quite a title there. Let's dive into this and see what Fugazi's bringing to the table today.
Smallpox Champion, USA, the natives of blankets, one like a grave. This is the battle, kept from the cloud. This is the battle, just have to take it right out, 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 right out. This is the frontier, when it's secure. Leading force action, when action makes bold. To take out the cattle, that's got from the start. Weaving the dizzy, it's gonna wipe you right out, 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 right out.
What was that screeching sound off to the left? Is that a recorder? That's what it sounds like. That's what the screeching sound is too. I love hearing the breath taken in the middle of that. Some really interesting phrasing from the vocal line. Great bass. What? So this whole final minute is just gonna be a single note. Okay, maybe I was a little bit more ambivalent towards Fugazi last time because I vaguely remember this sound and it's punkier. It still has a lot of that hardcore side to it. It's not quite as posty as I tend to like my post-hardcore. But I do like this because it does show something a bit closer to the origins. Because there still is a lot of punk to this. It is still noisy, it is still rather simple, and it's still abrasive in a lot of ways. Post-hardcore has been really shaved down. A lot of the rough edges been sandpapered down to something that modern day post-hardcore is very palatable. I mean, I listen to it. This certainly airs closer to the punk side of things. It's nice to have something like this week to balance out what I think is predominantly going to be more of the modern sound for post-hardcore. Even if I didn't quite enjoy this one as much as the last two that we've checked out. To start with, there's not a lot going on with the guitars, which is it's a very punk thing to do. There's two riffs in here, and then there's, can we call it a riff if they're just playing the same note over and over? That's not a riff, is it? I mean, technically it is. We can group it. We can say, you know, for these two bars, this is the riff, a bunch of quarter notes, and that's, I guess that's not technically wrong, but it feels weird to call this a riff. If we do, though, there's three riffs in the track. We have the one that takes us through, geez, like minutes at a time. It constitutes the verse and also the, I don't know if I should call it a chorus. It's the one where the vocalist utilizes a short phrase and says it over and over, like right on, right on, right on, right on. The guitar exists for both the verse and this repetitive section with the same idea. There is a chorus that comes in. We only hear it twice. The guitars change up their riff just ever so slightly, enough to recognize it's different, but not enough to virtually change any of the feeling of the track. The drums have a small switch up here as well, and the bass does too, although the bass doesn't really change much rhythmically. It's more of a, the note that it plays is different because what the guitars are playing are different. Much of the vocal timbre, delivery, range, all of that stays the same. It ends up making it so that our verse, our repeated section, and our chorus, which makes up like the first 6 or 7 segments of the song, and ultimately like most of the track, all feel very samey. After that, though, we end up getting that, the guitar is just hammering away at this one note while the bass throws down a really tasty bass line under it that evolves as the idea goes on. So I think there's 4 licks in there, and it takes up like 8 bars or something like that, and then that repeats. Every 8 bars is the same grouping of those 4 licks, but within that it's a fair bit linear. It's a nice little series of ideas. I can get behind that. The drums change it up a little bit to add to some intensity, and I don't remember what the vocals were doing here. This takes us out through the last minute of the song, though. It is my least favorite part of the track. It is like the sonic equivalent of just pressure, like a headache, just constantly drilling its way in, and you're just like, I want this to stop. And the guitar's just like, nope, nee, 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 like an alarm going off. Ah, man. As usual, though, I say all of this without much negativity or judgment. It's quite possible that the feelings that I have during this segment are exactly what they want me to have. We'll dig into some of this with the lyrics as I try to explore some of the themes they're trying to look at. But I did not have a good time in that final minute. Uh, but yeah, that's our general structure right there. It's like ABC, ABC, D, lots of D. There's a recorder in here. I think that's kind of neat. I don't know that it fits. It's sonically a bit out of place as far as its timbre. It's used in a way that does fit. Dang, man. I gotta find somewhere else for my arms to be. It's like the third time this week I've punched this thing, and I usually hit 0 times a week. I had a really good streak going. I've just blown it so many times. Um, I don't think the recorder fits in here timbre wise, but they're using it in a way that absolutely matches what the song is doing, especially during the right on section. I mean, it just keeps repeating that phrase, right on, right on, right on. The recorder is generally matching his pitch. I think the vocalist doesn't really aim for exact pitch, so it's kind of flat or sharp at times, but the recorder is generally in the same area. Very shrill sound, though. It's noisy in a way that the rest of the song is as well. And I think this is the part that ties it together for me. I don't necessarily think that having the recorder in here works. It is an interesting choice for what's going on, but they made it work. And I do like having a secondary set of melody in here to contrast what the vocals are doing, which are 100% melodic. I don't want to take that away from the vocals. They are playing a melody over what everyone else is. But the lack of intended pitch and sort of just hazily hitting notes, it feels a little more spoken wordy, maybe even a little bit more. I don't know the way to describe it. It's more focused on rhythm and texture than pitch, which kind of puts it in the same place as poetic spoken word or rapping, but it is still focused on pitch. It's just like not the highest of priorities. And so it's an interesting place. Having the recorder come in though and definitively lay down a melody, I think works really well for me in those moments. Like I said, the counterpoint is nice as well. The production on this is interesting as well. The vocals are pushed down, which isn't really a hardcore or post-hardcore thing in my mind. There were a lot of verses where I was thinking, I'd really like the vocals to be just a little louder. They don't need to be as loud as I would probably want them to, but it's really hard to hear them. I can't make out anything that's being said really in most of this. And even at one point, I'm pretty sure my mind pushed the vocals out of my mental eye, my mental ear, and I just stopped listening to them altogether. They became background noise because aside the lyrics themselves are the thing that I think are going to stand out. The vocal delivery doesn't. Like I said, it's sort of rhythmic and texturally focused as its priorities. And so much like a lot of death metal where the vocals become monotonous and just blurring to the background, the same happened here, which is a very different experience for me with this type of music. Again, not a bad thing, just totally not what I was expecting. And given that it's Fugazi, I want to know what they're singing. They always have really great lyrics. So that was an interesting choice. I don't know where this sits on anything else. I know this was 93, so this is pretty early, but I know Fugazi as a whole is pretty early. We checked out Repeater before, right? That's 90, so that's even earlier than this. Actually, I think that's the only other album we've listened to. So this is actually their latest thing that we've listened to from them. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting decision. Um, what I get out of this? It's loud, It's abrasive. The repeated guitar at the end sounds like an alarm, and the screeching recorder in some of the sections at the beginning of the track feel like an attention grab. Listen to me is what I get out of those sections. Not usually in a way that I find preferable, like, oh no, I want to listen to this. Like, geez, all right, I'll listen if you'll just stop screaming. that kind of vibe. And so that's sort of what this feels like. It feels desperate in a lot of ways. It wants to be heard. It wants people to listen to it. It uses alarm sounds from the guitar in order to be abrasive and grab your attention. There is no way to listen to the last minute of this track and not hear that guitar. I don't care if this song is being played in the background of another concert, I will hear that guitar. I'll be like, what is that? Whose alarm is going off? Can someone stop it? The song is designed to bring attention to itself in the noisiest, most abrasive, loudest way. And I don't know why. I mean, this is just hardcore, right? I think that this idea of being loud and abrasive covers a lot of punk. But there's something particular in the way that they use sound of the instruments in this to achieve a waking up kind of thing. Like there's import going on. Something's important here. And my guess is what's important is going to end up being in the lyrics. But sadly, at least for me, I'm probably not going to be returning to this track. It's just a hair bit too abrasive, as I mentioned at the beginning, still having one foot really securely planted in the hardcore scene for me to really get into it. But I'm fascinated about it because of its cultural and historical significance in my understanding of post-hardcore as a genre. So, if all signs point to the lyrics, I figure that should be the next place we explore. Well, those are a heavy set of lyrics right there. The song is about the attempted genocide of the Native American of the North American Native American people through the use of smallpox. And how this event has been documented and will be remembered and will never be wiped out of people's minds. It will always serve to describe the types of people that existed hundreds of years ago. I think there's another side to this as well. That's the part that sits right on the surface with verses like Smallpox Champion, US of A, give natives some blankets, warm like the grave. In reference to some of the European settlers who gave them blankets covered in smallpox, spreading this disease that the Native American people had absolutely zero immunity for. But the bridge says, what is good for the future? What was good for the past? What is good for the future won't last. And I think the purpose of the bridge is to say that most decisions made that are going to have any impact on the future are going to be made for the here and now. Any decision to actually help future us is going to, well, as I say, it won't last. It's not going to make the elimination process as we figure out what we should be doing right now, because it's all long-term gains and no one's concerned with that. It's all about what can we do to benefit right now. That's kind of what I get out of the bridge, which does sort of tie back to a little bit to this topic about the smallpox outbreak in North America. Because what was good for the European settlers right then and there to wipe out the people who lived here so that they could take it over isn't great for the future. It absolutely reduced the amount of cultures, the amount of diverse people that would be going forward. It removed viewpoints and perspectives and horizons. It was also just sort of catastrophic on like personal lives. Like that sucks to just see people, regardless of the future at all, but just to see friends, family get sick like this, knowing you might be next. Any plagues throughout history have been catastrophic to societies, but also people individually. But even worse when it is not just something that happens, but something put onto you. That is just, it's just disgusting to think about. It really is. There is a quote from William Trent. His journal at Fort Pitt from 1763 says, "Out of our regard to them, we gave them 2 blankets and a handkerchief out of the smallpox hospital. I hope it will have the desired effect." Like, that is just chilling. I, I can't even put my mind into somebody like that. Anyways, so this idea of what's good for the future won't last. And so verse 3 and 4 still sort of generally take some of the visualizations of that: blankets, crops, people being wiped out, and looks at it in more of a modern sense, utilizes similar vocabulary, but not talking about that specific event anymore. And I think the song is basically about sort of viewing how these types of people never left. They just continued to be in control and found different ways to do this. The outro says, "Hey champions, you'll get yours." Saying that we see through you, we see your methods, we know how you act. You'll get what's coming to you eventually. It is. It is a loud, abrasive song, and I think it makes sense to bring attention to themselves. They have a message that they want to get through to people, and, there's a lot of sound, even in 93, but even more so today. You want to get your message out, you got to be loud about it. And they knew how to do that. They knew how to get attention on them. Like I even said, if I heard that ending anywhere, I would immediately pick up on that guitar, just wailing away like an alarm on that one note. I'd be able to hear it through any amount of noise. What is that? And I think that's the point of a lot of this track. Not necessarily to sound good, not necessarily to be thematically resonant, but just to get ears on it. Those are my thoughts on Fugazi's Smallpox Champions. Let me know yours. Give me your thoughts, comments, perspectives, and opinions down in the comment box above that in the description. There's a link to Linktree in there. It takes you to this menu. You can find my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. That wraps this one up. We do have a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.